What industry is a lot shadier than it seems? Go to the answer. Avocado farms. Most of the farms in Central America are taken over by the cartel because of how much money is in selling avocados. Go to the next answer. Trucking. The margins are razor thin and so everyone is trying to nickel and dime each other constantly. The drivers lie to their dispatchers, the dispatchers lie to the brokers lie to the clients. All of this for like $50, $100 sometimes. I worked in trucking and the head HR lady for our distribution center was skimming payroll, shorting the checks of the lowest people on the totem pole, then getting cash infusions to petty cash and corporate to return part of the theft as an emergency tied over until the employee's next check, then claiming the rest of the theft as an overage on the next payroll report. I am probably missing a step in her chain, but I am not an accountant. It was a scam she managed to work for a couple of years due to a lack of oversight during nationwide management shifts. When she finally got caught, rather than take the bad publicity, the company just let her leave. The last I heard, she was working in the same position in an adjacent industry, but still involving transportation. Go to the next answer. Health insurance. In the commercials it is all about caring for your health and stuff, but if you ever get a serious illness, they will do anything to avoid paying for your treatment. For example, my mother got breast cancer and her health insurance made a business decision to let her die rather than pay the $40,000 for her treatment. They made that decision, then hired lawyers to make it happen. My mom got to fight them in court while going through chemo. She made it by mortgaging the house. She told me the insurance company caused her more stress than the prospect of dying. Go to the next answer. More people died last year over vanilla in Madagascar than cocaine in South America. They've even coined the term vanilla murder. Farmers hire armed mercenaries to guard their crops from thieves near harvest time. And if one is caught, well, let's just say it's in response to all the farmers that were killed by thieves for the same reason. Vanilla, while being a common flavor in the Western world, is quite exotic in actuality. It is the fruit of a specific orchid, and most of the vanilla we get in the Western world come from Madagascar and its surrounding islands. It is hand-pollinated, and storms in the Atlantic Ocean have made their harvest difficult in the past several years. I understand that vanilla is the second most expensive spice to produce behind saffron. Go to the next answer. Not an industry, but higher academia is badly broken. Some of the smartest people are some of the most badly exploited. Old tenured professors limit the number of faculty many departments can have, forcing people to work as postdocs forever, effectively doing all the work the prof should be doing in the first place. Meager pay and long hours, plus constant pressure makes postdocs some of the most depressed people. The grad students are no better either. A lot of the time grad students don't complain about ill treatment, harassment and outright bullying as they don't want to jeopardize their prospects of graduating. If you're a foreigner, this situation becomes even worse, whether you're a grad student or a postdoctoral researcher. It's a pyramid scheme. Way more new PhDs are granted each year than open faculty jobs. If anyone is reading this and is considering a PhD, you should choose a field that has a robust non-academic labor market. The odds of getting a faculty job are shrinking every year, and post-coronavirus it's only getting worse. Go to the next answer. A lot of hobby fish importing is pretty shady. You have farms of certain types of fish like betters in some areas of the world that are run with the fish in horrible conditions, which is why a lot of the ones you get in a major chain store are sick before you even bring them home. The stores will blame the fish being stressed, but I've ordered and received hundreds of fish from small breeders, sellers and outside of Cory catfish that really enjoy committing suiciding by poisoning their own water. The fish arrive healthy and fine. Outside of boutique fish farming, the way some wild fish are caught is just horrible. The trappers will likely poison the water supply to knock out the fish, then scoop them out of the water without a care for that area's ecosystem. This has led to depletion of some natural species to the point they are now endangered. Lastly, boutique fish sellers, major chains do not give half a rat's ass what happens to the fish in the end. This means that people who buy fish like plecus, betters, goldfish, etc. end up getting sick of them and dumping them in local waterways to supposedly get rid of the problem. So in some areas, These fish have completely destroyed the local water ecology because, like other invasive land species, they were never meant to be there. One of the worst offenders is the lionfish in Florida. It's venomous and has no natural predators, so its population has exploded out of control. Basically, releasing fish into the wild is a terrible idea. Releasing any animal into the wild can have disastrous consequences, but fish are being released into a very limited ecosystem and outside of a few diseases. If they can adapt to the water and have no predators, they will survive and breed incredibly quickly. I love my fish. I love the hobby, and there's a lot of value to it, as global warming may make things like reef tanks a valuable source of coral in the future. But there's also a lot of bad to it. Go to the next answer. The maritime industry. Most of the big companies do things by the book and treat crews well because they're afraid of lawsuits and unions. But many smaller mom-and-pop companies break laws and violate safety regulations with reckless abandon because they are not as visible and can stay under the radar, so to speak. It's very common for a small company to ask a captain crew to do something illegal and dangerous in order to increase profit, and for the captain crew to comply out of fear of losing their jobs. And that's just the US maritime industry. Sailors from poorer nations who work on ships are often fed little more than rice and cheap ramen for months at a time and paid pennies for their back-breaking work. I love running tugs for a living, but the industry as a whole is rife with shady business. Go to the next answer. Dietary supplements. It's gotten better, but there's still a lot of half-truths and whole lies. Not all that long ago it was seriously like the wild west. Go to the next answer. Pet industry. Basement puppy mills and dogs that are so inbred they can hardly breathe. There are plenty of ethical breeders out there, and some unlicensed breeders are ethical even if in a legal gray zone, but the conditions of some of the so-called puppy mills can be really bad. Sometimes when breeds are mixed and the pup gets the recessive genes the breeders weren't looking for, they straight up euthanize it because they know it won't sell. Not to mention how many purebreds are actually not pure at all, and sold as is. Shady. As an example to folks who don't know, those Russian tortoise babies are actually young adults captured in the wild. As for captive bred tortoise hatchlings sold by wholesalers at Expos, they are started as cheap as possible, and it may take months to see that anything is wrong. All pet stores, different chains, in an area most likely order from the same vendors because of availability and distance. It's the same issue as the fish industry. The animals are contained, fed, and bred as cheaply as possible. Unfortunately, from my experience, beardies in my region got some of the worst treatment because they are in such high demand. Go to the next answer. This will probably get buried, but glitter. A manager of one of the biggest glitter manufacturers, Glittex, said in a 2018 interview that most of the glitter they make goes to one buyer for a single industrial use. When asked who the buyer was and why they need so much glitter, she said, "Oh, I definitely can't disclose that." When asked why, she said because they don't want anybody to know it's glitter. Ever since this interview, people have been trying to guess what company or industry secretly uses most of the world's glitter and why they want to keep that use under wraps. Go to the next answer. Sunglass industry. Punny business. But, yes, it's true. I'll use Oakley as an example because it's literally close to home. Oakley has not been the same since they were bought out. Oakley was a great company to work for with great bonuses, swag, and extremely high company morale. Their HQ is one of the coolest buildings you could find, and the people were always happy to work for a legendary company that really treated their employees right. Oakley knew their customers well, but at the end of the day, it's still a business, and Luxottica wanted that business. Luxottica bought them out in the end, but not through Oakley's own will. You see, Luxottica owns nearly all the major glasses brands and the stores that carry them. They are one step short of a full monopoly of the entire global eyewear industry. Luxottica wanted Oakley, so they took Oakley off all the shelves of every major glasses retailer until Oakley could do nothing but give in. Squeezed dry until they had to be bought at nicer price for Luxottica. Go to the next answer. Mattress industry. Specifically, mattress firm. Worked in the mattress industry for a bit at a startup. Basically 90% bullshit. And the worst part? We had a real doctor serve an advisory role for our products. He debunked a lot of nonsense claims about mattresses like your pillow is 50% of your spinal support that the salespeople use to sell you accessories. The salespeople would argue with him, like they knew better. Kool-Aid is strong there. Some of my favorites I learned are these hit director door in a box foam bed. Companies like Tuft and Needle use the same material from the same manufacturer. There's hundreds of them. Just put them in different boxes and sell at wildly different prices. Side sleeper, back sleeper and stomach sleeper are baloney. You toss and turn at night on purpose to help prevent blood clots. No mattress will keep you from tossing and turning for the reason above. It's a natural thing you're supposed to do. More layers doesn't mean better mattress. A lot of companies add in cheap materials like upholstery foam to just claim there's more layers. Maybe one layer of nice springs, then just 10 layers of various types of cheap foam to get the layers higher. One that actually is true is heat. If you frequently are hot at night, foam mattress is not good for you. It's an insulator and will trap your heat on your body. In general, air and spring are better beds because of heat. Your body needs to dump temperature at night to get into a full, deep sleep. If it's too hot, you won't sleep well. Go to the next answer. Eyeglasses. You have no idea the snow job they put most people through when it comes to buying them. It's far worse than trying to buy a new car from a dealership. Wholesale frames are about $5.20. Wholesale lens blanks are another $10. Any kind of dip coating, UV, tinting, etc. is negligible cost and effort to apply. Literally pennies. To top it off, they don't even do a whole lot in-house, but send it to labs which are basically sweatshops that can take up to 2-3 weeks when labor time is literally under 5 minutes. Instead of training real opticians and technicians, they're just glorified sales staff now. Most of the time they don't even bother with proper measurement for PD, frame width, or arm fitting. Was an optician in the early 90s. I'm horrified at what the business has become. Go to the next answer. Hear me out. K-pop. All the idol industry is shady. I've seen some interviews on retired idols and they have a lot to say about how the industry works. One of them even mentioned that they would split the profit 70/30, but when it came to pay, they divided the expenses 50/50, and if the group didn't make enough money, the idols would be in debt with the producers. Many times, idols would come out much poorer than when they entered. Go to the next answer. Defense contract manufacturing. When I worked in that field, it was like a time capsule to 70s stereotypes. Beer for lunch, whiskey in the desk drawer, everyone fucking everyone, and the best seats at the biggest games for decision makers. Just one example. I was at a lunch at a nice restaurant with my boss and a potential client we had flown in from DC. They got plastered at noon and started giggling about the biggest explosions they'd ever seen and what cool shit they'd watched smash into other cool shit. Work bled into the evening and smoking cigars at a pub that sold them was a weekly ritual and a way to hammer out the details. This was recent, like during the modern height of stupid contracts being thrown around. Go to the next answer. Fast food is whack. Food service in general, honestly. I was a waitress for 10 years at various restaurants, but they all had something in common. There was no paid time off. Meaning if you got sick and had bills to pay, you were going to work. Not only that, but even if you decided you'd take the day off and lose the money, you were threatened with being fired unless you got a doctor's note, which none of us could get, since we didn't have health insurance. Really wild stuff. Someone said, happened to me in Ireland. I was the only Irish guy in there and they said I wasn't getting double time on bank holiday Monday and my flexi hour contract meant that I didn't get holidays. The owners were Kiwis and I remember just looking at them saying, you know I'm Irish, right? I know what the laws are. I know how to get this whole shit shut down and I know there is a lot more at stake here for you than for any of us. And that's how we got double pay at that restaurant. Go to the next answer. Shipping industry, with major corporations such as Walmart being one of the biggest contributors to selling stolen goods. Sometimes trucks go missing or sometimes trucks leave earlier than the established time of departure and never arrive to their destinations. Let's say you have a Walmart appointment for 9 AM. For a 2,000 carton order, it would take at least 2 hours to load all that. But once the loading is done, the truck driver needs to wait until confirmation is given in written form. Well, Walmart truck drivers vanish halfway through the loading and never return. Now, Walmart has about 1,000 boxes not accounted for, plus no confirmation whatsoever that these 1,000 boxes were part of that 2,000 carton order, so they treat them like a bonus. So far, only UPS, FedEx and Fred Meyer are the only companies that keep a close count and send back anything that wasn't in their original order. Heck, Fred Meyer sends the entire order back just for a single mislabeled box. LOL, these three guys are the good guys, from what little I've seen, but Walmart, Jesus. Sometimes, boxes get labeled as being something entirely different in order to bypass special qualifications or restrictions. For example, about the time when Corona-chan started going crazy, we had to label toys and board games as groceries for a huge Walmart order that took about a week and a half to properly label and ship. It was a nightmare and pretty much every employee aside from the administrative staff was disgusted and pissed. Go to the next answer. Medical research. The only way people can keep their jobs at a lot of the institutions with better facilities is to create a steady stream of high-impact publications. Now, research doesn't work that way. You get the supported results whenever it happens, but that's not how hiring, promotion, or tenure committees see it. This means that, in order to ensure you get enough of these desirable publications in the right period, you have to do all sorts of corner cutting. You publish before the results are well supported. You publish results that are unrepeatable. You write papers in the smallest possible units of the work so people need to wait years to see what the full results are. In the process, junior scientists' careers can be made or absolutely destroyed in this system. A lucky student who gets the right project can find themselves as first author on a very high impact paper and be set for years. But an experienced and previously successful postdoc can be ruined when they can't produce the results the senior scientists want, or just not in the right time frame. The senior scientists rarely have the time to do, or carefully look over, the actual research because they are so busy actually writing the papers and the grants needed to fund the work in the first place. If reviewers catch these issues with the papers, the authors just shop the paper to other journals until it passes, and or they put up such a pitched battle with the editors they just let it pass. Sometimes the eds feel they can't handle the pressure, sometimes are just convinced by the bombast. All of us have seen published papers that we rejected for other journals earlier because the work is poorly done or is just incorrect. To be clear, the authors really believe in their papers even when they are aware of their shortcomings, and they usually have plenty of evidence that papers just as problematic or worse have been published, so why not theirs? On top of everything, the universities and research institutions work over these findings with their press department, and by the time it makes it to journalists, the story is so distorted that it's barely related to the actual work. Bloggers digest this even further and the misperceptions spread all over a much wider community. Even other scientists in different areas of the same field will absorb this news as truth. These are the scientists on those committees mentioned above, demanding a particular kind of result. As a result of all this, medical research is much more inefficient and expensive than it needs to be. However, scientists need jobs, grant money, and good facilities to do their work at all, and the system makes it clear what they need to do to ensure those necessities, so they oblige. Go to the next answer. Rating services like Yelp refuse to advertise and your good reviews magically get rearranged. Hey, look, if you want to do that and be transparent, I get it, but most every business owner knows how scummy this is and most clients just have no idea. I have a business that isn't something that would usually be looked for on Yelp. They called and I just froze. Luckily I do long-term rentals and was sold out, explaining I wouldn't have an opening for months. They seemed to leave me alone, yet they have my business on the front page of Google search, under the wrong category. Go to the next answer. Cruise ships. I was told I was having a minimum of 1 day off every week and work normal hours, 8-10 each day, with a good pay and good prepaid tips. I ended up working 30 days in a row, all over 400 hours, for $1,600 with tips included. This company I was working for was called Scenic Cruises. Ship was called Miss Scenic Crystal, which was an Australian company working over a Swiss company going under a Maltese flag, sailing in Central Europe. That's how I understood it anyways. They deliberately did this so they could break international laws. I counted at least 5 that they broke. Biggest scam company I ever worked for. I resigned after my first month. The police boarded the ship every once in a while because they knew this, but they couldn't do shit because I had no jurisdiction over the ship. I was forced to work with a 39°C fever. I really wanna fuck this company up, but I literally have no idea how. And hiring an international lawyer or whatever is too expensive. Go to the next answer. The gourmet mushroom industry. The short of it is that I pulled over to check on what I thought was a forest fire in the middle of nowhere, British Columbia. Turned out it was a wandering rove of, for lack of a better title, Canadian mushroom gypsies looking for matsuki, pine, mushrooms and chanterelles. Next thing you know, my car keys vanished and I was put to work for 2 days with payment being a sandwich and a few beers. We wandered the forest, digging up pine buttons and learned way more about mushrooms than I ever imagined. And we were warned heavily to stay close to our own captors, kidnappers, whatever, as the rival group was not above violent tactics if you entered their territory. This was affirmed when I stumbled upon an angry man from the other side pointing a shotgun at me. Whether or not there's truth to it, I don't know, but supposedly the mushroom world was once incredibly lucrative until the Chinese mob infiltrated it and gouged the prices. After 2 days my keys mysteriously reappeared with my car unharmed and nothing missing. No one would answer where it went, but they all knew. Hands down the nicest kidnappers ever, but it was a wild experience. Thanks for your listening to the Reddit books. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for getting new video daily. Let us know in the comments what you think below about the information of the video. See you next video.